Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Into the North podcast, where we take a look at the competitive side of the Commander format, also known as CEDH. I am one of your hosts, Noobzaurs, and today I am joined by my co-hosts Null.
What's up, guys?
And Spleenface.
Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Sickrobot unfortunately couldn't be here for this episode, but you'll definitely hear from him next episode, so look forward to that. Okay, in this episode we will be covering the Modern Horizons CEDH set review. Exciting. Hooray!
Wow, new set. Always exciting.
Yeah, this is actually after War of the Spark, I was like, how can they possibly beat this set? And you know what? I'm not going to say they beat it, but they definitely are giving it a run for its money.
Yeah, it's two home runs in a row.
Yeah, this is insane. Insane in terms of CEDH, just like unprecedented. Okay, so before we get into the actual new cards and start reviewing the new cards, Null, do you want to kick things off with just a quick list of the relevant CEDH reprints in this set?
Yeah, of course. So featured in Modern Horizons are only a couple interesting reprints. First off is Flusterstorm. This card, I think, was at an all-time low before the set was released. Saw a bit of a spike there, but yeah, I expect it's going to go down. And then, next is Kess, which also saw an all-time low before the set release, and also got a tiny bit of a spike, but yeah, cards like this will go back down unless they are featured in actual Modern decks. Next up, Eladamri's Call. This card is pretty much, I can only think of Hulk.
Yeah, so he's playing some Sisay.
I guess Sisay, yeah. Once again, a relatively cheap card that will definitely see a bit of a spike, but will definitely go back down. And then another, last but not least, we have Full Art Snow Basics. These are they all look super nice. Snow Basics were at least $1.
They're creeping up there.
Maybe $2. Yeah. So hopefully this will drive those prices down for those monocolored decks out there.
Yeah, one thing to note though is that this printing these cards into Modern that previously obviously weren't in Modern could have the adverse effect on price that you want. Like, if card is reprinted, typically you see a price drop, but if these cards get picked up a lot in Modern, start seeing a lot of play, you can see price increases for these cards. So that's worth considering. So maybe now's not the time if you're looking to buy a cast right after the price spike, but definitely keep an eye on that price for when you think is an optimal time, right before hopefully ride the wave before people pick up on that in Modern.
Also, particularly Flusterstorm, because it's being printed as a buy a box promo and being added to Modern, which seems like not the best
really
decision.
A reprint. Yeah.
Okay, then.
I think the card that honestly will see the most play outside CDH is Eladamri's Call. Of these, yeah.
Really, with Cord and Coco in Modern, I don't know, man. Maybe
it's a fast format, but yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, Modern talk aside, let's jump into the actual new cards from the set. So first, we'll kick things off with some of the less exciting cards from the set, or cards that just they're not going to be as impactful as some of the cards we're going to be covering later. So I'll kick things off, and this card is Archmage's Charm, and that is for triple blue. It is an instant with choose one, counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards, and the third mode is gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Okay, so what do you guys think of this card?
I mean,
that's a solid counter spell. I mean, it has options. It's not always dead, but I think triple blue pretty much means that you're not going to run it outside of mono blue.
Yeah, I also think the fact that it can be, you can hold it up as counter magic, convert it into card advantage if you're a bit stalled out. But then also that you can just kind of end of turn, snag someone's Soul Ring or Mana Crypt, their Carpet or their Remora. Maybe end of turn and grabbing a Remora might not be the best because then you've got to pay the upkeep. But depending on the turn and where you are in the game, like it can be relevant, that last mode. So I think that kind of just barely pushes it into the playability range for CDH in mono blue, in like very specific mono blue decks.
The issue I see is the obvious deck you'd want to put this in like the one that wants the most counter spells is Baral, but with Baral you'd rather run a different 3-mana counterspell that can be discounted by his ability.
Like, yeah, I think Baral. Looking at it for Baral might be kind of a bit of a trap, because of you've got such a wide range of cards that now become playable because of his discount effect. I think you've got to look at things like you got to look at things maybe like JVP.
I guess JVP could use it, but
yeah. So like, yeah,
I don't know that deck wants another.
It might not see play, but yeah, that's Archmage's Charm. Next card.
Sure. So this next one is Ayula's Influence for green, an enchantment that reads: discard a land, create a 2/2 green bear creature token.
So I'll kick things off with this card. So this is a card that many people on the Gitrog Discord were talking about. Also, it got a lot of talk. People saying, like, who are non-Gitrog players, who are saying, oh, this is like an auto include for Gitrog or it's an improvement over Chains of Mephistopheles. So I just want to take this time to dispel that notion. The casting cost. Triple green, not super prohibitive. Like, it's a bit prohibitive, but that's not like what kills this. It's not the CMC. It's the fact that it says discard a land card. Now, most people think, oh, well, Dakmor's a land, so obviously you just get there. But the problem is that a lot of the time in Gitrog, you end up taking advantage of creature tutors to find Golgari Grave Troll, which then you can use to find Dakmor. And because this says discard a land card, you can't actually discard your Golgari Grave Troll, so you're not going to be able to use that. It basically turns off a bunch of tutors in your deck from being able to find Dakmor. Also, this has issues where you can't discard an Eldrazi Titan, it's a bit more niche for the problems that can cause, but it is relevant. So yeah, Chains of Mephistopheles being cheaper, less prohibitive mana cost, acts as a stacks piece that you break parity well on and can be used to, pitch your Grave Troll to find Dakmor is kind of what makes it better. But obviously, for those of you who don't want to spend, $800 US on Chains of Mephistopheles, Ayula's Influence is a great budget replacement for something that gets around Linval and Curse Totem.
Yeah,
and I don't think this.
I think triple green.
Any other deck?
I don't know how you're gonna do it, but
yeah. Next.
All right. Next up, we have Generous Gift, and it is 2 and a white for an instant. It says destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. So it's a Beast Within, but it's white, and it makes an elephant, which I guess is funny.
White elephant gift.
Yes. I think that Beast Within sees play pretty much only in decks that are severely color restricted and Tasigur. And decks that are severely color restricted probably don't also have white, and Tasigur also doesn't have white, so I don't know that there's a deck that's looking for this. But if you were trying to twist or loop in an Esper deck, for example, this could work.
Yeah, it fits into the, as you said, the Beast Within Reality Shift type, efficient slot loop combo in a non-green deck.
I don't think this is good enough, in my opinion. I just think that Beast Within sees play mainly because it can also, like in mono green decks, because it can remove creatures, can remove anything, and white is not a color that is starved for removal for either enchantments, artifacts, or creatures. And those are really the only, you're not going to see like planeswalkers or stuff in CDH really.
Well, you might.
And those decks are going to get killed by everything else. Teferi has definitely been a lot weaker lately, and as we will discuss later in this podcast, there is a card that might be usurping the position of best mono blue commander. So Teferi might be even seeing
Whoa.
less play. But in response to what you're saying about it in Esper for Twister loops, I just think there's better cards to loop, like looping Swan Songs, or just Esper Twister loops aren't particularly something you see very often in Esper.
Or potentially Azorius Twister Loops would also be...
Yeah.
Not that these are common things, but if there was a deck that wanted to Twister Loop in those colors, this could work, was all I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
A deck that might unlock itself based on a new card, or it's certainly worth keeping in
Yeah,
consideration.
there could easily be a commander that makes Twister, like an infinite mana outlet in those colors, like that makes Twister Looping a viable win con.
Okay, next card, we've got Throes of Chaos for 3 and a red. It is a sorcery that has Cascade, and it has Retrace, and that's all the text on that card. So Cascade, for those of you who don't know, it's when you cast a spell, reveal the top card of your library exile the top card of your library until you exile a card that has CMC, a non-land card that has CMC less than the casting cost of the card that has Cascade, and then you may cast that card, and then put the other exiled cards on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then Retrace, you can play this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card and in addition to paying its mana cost. So what does this see play in, maybe?
So I think I see this guy being played in decks that aren't running the most instant speed interactions, especially counter spells, that find themselves going late and also having excess lands. So, very strictly, I guess, Mizzix could mess around with this card. And then if you're really kind of trying to go on the hipster side, I guess Windgrace would love this as well. Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting card that you can just it's the 8th card in your hand with a decent effect.
Roll the dice.
Yeah.
See what happens. Yeah, I mean, when you're casting this for just a single red, discarding a land and potentially rolling into some sick card draw or something in Mizzix, then maybe it's not so bad. Our next card on the list.
Yeah, so the next one up is Mox Tantalite, and this is an artifact that has add 1 mana of any color. Oh, it also has Suspend 3 for 0.
Yeah, Mox Tantalite has
Wait,
no
what's
mana
its
cost.
mana cost? Yeah.
That's the relevant part, dude. They just printed straight up strictly better Moxen.
Dude, are you saying I can cast this thing off an Electro Dominance?
Yeah. No, it's something that would potentially see play in exactly one deck, and that deck is Yidris.
I don't
We're not
agree.
even sure that it would see play in Yidris.
I don't agree. I think it's substantial. Yeah, I don't think it'll see play in Yidris because it's substantially worse than the other cards that don't have mana costs. And yes, you'd rather hit Mox Tantalite than Mox Diamond off a Cascade, but Mox Diamond is useful when you're not jumping through hoops to enable it.
Yeah.
And this card isn't.
And I think that's it for Mox Tantalite.
Seems like it.
It's a mythic
right.
Mox, okay?
Yeah, mythic, holy moly. Next card.
We've got Hall of Heliod's Generosity. It's a legendary land. It can tap for a colorless, or you can pay 1 and a white and tap it and put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. So we've seen this effect before for creatures with Volrath Stronghold and for artifacts with Academy Ruins.
When are they going to complete this cycle, man?
Yeah, no, they're working on it. And in decks that don't have awesome graveyard recursion and perhaps are using Staxy enchantments of some kind, it could let you rebuy a critical piece, but it doesn't seem to enable any game-breaking combos because second chance is bad.
Yeah, I think this is a card that it's not going to see play in any decks right now, but could see play in decks down the line where, like you're saying with Academy Ruins, that's a card that's used to rebuy artifacts in decks that struggle to do so, and I could definitely see decks that struggle to rebuy enchantments wanting to play this if there's ever a key enchantment combo.
I could see this being being played in Brago because that deck has a bunch of enchantments that it wants to flicker. Particularly, some of them have fading, and it's a 2-color deck, so you can afford a bunch of random tech lands.
Yeah, could be.
I think another major difference that kind of sets it at a bit of a lower standard than Academy Runes is that Academy Runes has blue in its cost, and so it's limited to blue at a minimum. And there are like mono blue commanders, but with white, like there aren't any competitive mono white commanders to this day.
Say that to Teshar's face.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much more to say about this one. So then I'll cover Reap the Past. For X and a red and a green, it is a sorcery with return X cards at random from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Reap the Past. So Spleen, I think you want to talk about this card.
Yeah, so this card, it's almost good enough. It basically just has one too many drawbacks. Like, obviously, X2 and X as a base for returning that many cards from your graveyard is insane. But it's a sorcery, the cards are random, and it exiles itself, and you have to be in red. And if it was missing like any one or certainly any two of those conditions, it could see play in a lot of decks, but it just doesn't quite get there because it's a little bit too narrow in every circumstance that you'd want to use it. But
yeah, even like non-land would have been fine.
Sorry?
Just X cards. Even if it was like return X non-lands, I think that would have been good enough.
Oh, non-land at random? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, up next, Null?
Yeah, so we've got Fallen Shinobi for 3 blue-black, creature, zombie, ninja. This guy has ninjutsu for 2 blue and a black, and reads, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library. Until end of turn, you may play those cards without paying their mana costs, and it's a 5/4.
It's a big boy.
Big boy.
Is. It's a surprise 5/4.
Your Thrastos just becomes a 5/4 that draws you 2 cards. I think it costing 4 with the ninjutsu, like even though you're discounting 1, still a bit too costly for this effect, considering it doesn't have like any form of trample or evasion, so you might not be able to get repeated uses of this effect. Although if you're in a meta where some people just aren't throwing up blockers, like there's a Teferi or something, like maybe this could be good enough.
Well, also
the
like,
fact that you don't have to pay the cost is nice, though.
Yeah. Also, decks that like, for example, I play Kess, right, and that's a card that shuts down Tymna decks. But I don't want to be blocking this with something like that. Like, decks that have a few creatures that block well also really don't want to block this, like, because cards that block well are still going to die to this because it's a 5/4.
Yeah, what's nice is too that it's because it's play those cards, you can play lands off this.
Yes.
So that's something that a lot of times you'll just see cast, which is a bit unfortunate. But when it says play, it is really nice. A nice bonus can help you hit your land drops. Also, you can just kind of like maybe spike a tutor or like a win con and keep that exiled. So yeah.
Also, blue-black decks also tend to be ad nauseum decks, which makes it not great. But I think that this is the closest to playable that we've seen, sort of an effect like this, where you're trying to get in to get value with a creature for a long time.
I mean, we saw Azra's odds maker sees play, sees some amount of play. Doesn't see regular play, but sees some amount of play. That was in Battle Bond, right? So
I guess it sees play in pretty much exactly Najeela, because it has warrior synergy and. Yeah, so I guess Azra Oddsmaker is the last time we saw a card like this that's somewhat playable.
Okay. Our next card on the list.
Our next card on the list is Giver of Runes. It is a creature core cleric that casts for a single white mana, and it is a 1/2 with tap. Another target creature you control gains protection from colorless or the color of your choice until end of turn. So it's not quite Mother of Runes, but there's a lot of similarities for sure.
Rip Godo. Give Godo protection from colorless. Get him.
Creature you control.
Oh, you control.
Oh wow.
Bad card. Go
Wow,
away.
I thought that
No,
card was
it really
way
is.
better
It
in my
really is
Godo
a
only meta.
kind of just a bad card. I think it's Mom barely sees play. Sorry, Mom being Mother of Runes, and this is just it doesn't protect itself. So you can't absorb removal there. It's just you don't really want multiple copies of this effect. If you want protection, typically you're looking for, if you're in green, you like Sylvan Safekeeper is kind of like the benchmark there. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this?
I don't think so.
I think that sums it up.
Really unimpressive. Okay, our next card is Ranger Captain of Eos. When it costs for a 1 generic mana and 2 white. It is a creature human soldier. When Ranger Captain of Eos enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And you can sacrifice Ranger Captain of Eos. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. And it is a 3/3. So this can find your Giver of Runes, right guys? Wow, powerful.
I think this card's pretty okay. Like,
yeah, it's
well statted. It's a tutor, so yeah, like it's certainly gonna get you something useful.
problem is
and its
it's a
sacrifice ability
restricted
is
tutor, and it's like really restricted. Or like you just kind of it does replace itself, but it replaces itself with kind of like a garbage card. Cast for double, like 1 and double white. That's not cheap.
The double white is definitely what
I guess it's
makes me not want to play this card. Like if it was 2 and a white, I would definitely be looking at it going, I really want to see if I can fit that into a deck. But
yeah, the nice thing, like maybe you cast this, find like a costed caterpillar, and so like that's nice in terms of like your value, and then at least so it's not like not like you're going down a full card, and then you keep it up, and it's a nice stacks piece that can prevent or pseudo stacks piece that can like prevent your opponents from winning the game, so no one's like eager to pull the trigger on going for a win attempt because you can just crack it and it basically stalls them out. And then if it comes around to your turn, you can crack it and feel free to combo. Like that's kind of best case scenario in my mind. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of like what's the deck where you want to use this to protect your combo effectively that's also okay with casting a 3-drop for double white.
Anafenza, maybe.
Yeah, possibly Anafenza, yeah.
Maybe
Selvala doesn't really see any play, but
maybe Sisay. Like decks that aren't holding up interaction.
But decks that look to win with creature-based combos are also just a lot less vulnerable to counterspells in the first place, right?
I mean, if they're burning a counterspell on Ranger Captain of Eos, like, okay.
No. I'm saying, like, it's less relevant. There's a lot of counterspells that don't hit creatures, so if you're trying to win with a creature combo, it's less relevant. Like, it's a lot less good than if you're trying to win with, like, Ad Nauseam.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, yes and no, but a lot of the creature-based combos, like if you're thinking like Anafenza, like you do have to cast non-creature spells often to. Like you need to cast your Reanimate, you need to cast your Entomb or your Buried Alive to find it, and there's usually some non-creature spells weaved in among those combos.
True.
So yeah, like maybe, but you've also got effects that this has to compete with. Obviously, is Silence, which I don't think it's ever going to beat. Grand Abolisher is just a really efficient way to protect your combo on your turn. So I mean, obviously this has a bit of a different effect in that you don't have to, like Grand Abolisher, you could tap out for your double white, and that's not going to do anything if your opponents try to combo. So in a way, this is kind of like a little bit of a, not really a mana battery, but you cast it, it's protection that gets delayed until your turn while still threatening interaction. But then also like Abeyance, being that it's just target opponent can't cast spells or activate abilities this turn, but also cantrips for 1 and a white. So, maybe this will find a slot, but yeah, I think only time will tell with this one. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So our next card on the list.
Yep, this next one is Vesper Lark, and it casts for 2 and a white, and it's a creature elemental with flying. When Vesper Lark leaves the battlefield, return target creature with power 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has Evoke for 1 and a white, and it's a 2/1.
Well,
It's a
Vesper
little
Lark.
baby Revelark.
Yeah.
So cute.
There's some good cards with power 1 or less.
Yeah. See, this is a card that we kind of put on this list without really having any particular place in mind for this, just because this is something that has an effect that could get broken wide open. Like maybe there's some like really weird Hulk pile or some kind of weird creature combo you can set up because this is like more efficient with its mana cost, or there's got to be something either that exists out there right now that might make it see play, or that cards printed in the future will enable.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thoughts on it.
It's just, yeah, because it looks like it should enable some sort of like Fiend Hunter or Felidar Guardian style combo with it, but usually you want to be fetching those combos off a Protean Hulk, and if you're getting multiple Protean Hulk triggers, why aren't you just getting a Karmic Guide, which is a much more versatile card?
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for like these less interesting cards. Let's move on to not the juiciest stuff of the set yet, but you know, some meat and potatoes, if you will. Some cards that are just all around solid. They're gonna see play, but I guess they're not flashy and exciting like some of the other cards we're gonna cover. So the first of these of this lot is the Talisman cycle. So WotC decided they'd like to finally treat the enemy colors with the respect they deserve, and give us the enemy colored talismans.
And
I think there are a lot of 2-color decks that are gonna really like this.
Yeah. And some 3-color decks too. I know, like,
Yeah.
there's Talisman of Hierarchy, which is white-black, and the Talisman of Creativity, which is blue-red. I think the blue-red Talisman is going to see a lot of play in, like, Grixis decks, for sure. Like, maybe Talisman of Hierarchy sees play in like, Zur, but obviously being white-black, a bit iffy. I don't think the other talismans are as relevant because 2 of those are green, and green generally has better things to do than cast artifact-based ramp, and one of them is in Boros, which is Boros. So,
sorry, just in case anyone's unfamiliar, talismans are 2-mana artifacts that can tap for a colorless mana, or can tap for 1 of 2 colors, and deal 1 damage to you. And so, yeah, we had those in the allied colors, which white-blue, blue-black, black-red, red-green, and green-white, and now we're getting the enemy colors, which is the other 5 pairs.
Yep. Okay, so our next all-around solid cards are actually lands. It's a cycle of lands. It's not actually completing a cycle of lands. It's, I guess, starting a cycle of lands.
Continuing?
Sort of.
Because it's...
Continuing, I guess, would be...
Yeah. Well, so these are dubbed appropriately the Horizon lands, and I wanted to, if you want to tilt people, if you want to tilt your opponents, you call them Canopy lands. Of course, named after Horizon Canopy. But yeah, Horizon land is just too appropriate given the fact that the set is Modern Horizons and Horizon Canopy being the original land with this effect. But yeah, so for those of you who aren't aware, this is what the effect is. It's a land that can pay 1 to add 1 of 2 colors to your mana pool, and then it also has pay 1, tap, sacrifice it to draw a card.
Sorry, pay 1 mana on the second effect.
Yes.
And pay 1 life on the first.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the cycle they give us, Horizon Canopy, was initially in green-white, and that was the only land that had this effect, and now they just gave us the enemy-colored cycle. So, hooray for enemy colors. Finally getting the love they deserve. But yeah, so these are just solid color fixing lands that have just really nice upside in the game if it gets stalled out. I don't know what else to say, just it's really good. Especially in Gitrog, Nurturing Peatland, which is the Golgari one. Auto including Gitrog is going to be nutty.
There are also that one and Waterlogged Grove, which is the Simic one, are also definitely going in Muldrotha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just all around solid lands going to see play. Probably they'd probably see play off the basis of just fixing. Like I'd run Nurturing Peatland if it didn't even have that second line of text, just because it's a nice fixing. So really solid. Going to see play in all kinds of 2-color decks.
I think if you find yourself running cards like Tarnished Citadel, you probably have an answer here.
Yeah, it could be. Tarnished Citadel in 4-color decks though I don't know. It's definitely hard sometimes when you're that strapped for colors, but yeah.
Maybe like 5-color Devotion, dude. Yeah. Like.
Okay, so now time to get into the juicy cuts of this set. These are the cards that are like really defining of this set, especially some of the ones on the later half of what we're going to discuss. Okay, so let's get into it. So first card of this bunch is Prismatic Vista. This is a land that has tap, pay 1 life, sacrifice Prismatic Vista, search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So, another fetch? Seems
wow, yeah.
not bad.
Looks like a fetch to me. Are you sure it doesn't say tap?
Yeah, it's just, like, if you're in a 2, like, maybe even 3-color deck, 3-color, it's a bit tougher, but because you want to be fetching you want to have dual lands and stuff, and this obviously doesn't tap for 2 colors, but in 2-color, this is just so solid. Like in Gitrog, this card is just insane, obviously, because it's going to cantrip a lot of the time. It's going to just fix you colors. So, yeah, just A+ card.
Yeah, especially in decks that are already limited on how many dual fetch targets they have.
Yeah, okay, I don't know. I don't think there's too much to say about this.
Yeah, I think this one pretty much speaks for itself. Like, it's a new fetch land.
Yeah, like
everyone runs fetches.
Yeah, so our next card, no?
Yeah, so this next one is Echo of Eons. It taps, or it costs for 4 blue. It's a sorcery and has each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. It has a flashback cost of 2 and a blue.
Yeah, so it's just...
I feel like I've seen this text before.
It's just Time Twister. Time Twister, that costs twice as much on the front end, but then flashes back for the same cost as Time Twister.
Well, it costs twice as much and also 1,000 times less.
Yeah, money-wise. Yes. So this card is going to be great in terms of decks that just might want to be on, like, this is a common question on Discord and on the subreddit, which is, what's a budget replacement for Time Twister? And for the longest time, a lot of the response has been, there really isn't one, or, like, if you're doing Twister loops, it's, Memory's Journey, Noxious Revival, or things like that. But this is a card that, in decks that are running Time Twister, this is perhaps the best budget replacement so far that we've seen.
Unless you're also running Ad Nauseam.
Yeah, that's
it's
rough.
The closest functional reprint to Time Twister that we'll get. Like,
yeah, it's like, obviously you're not going to be doing your turn 1 land mana crypt Time Twister, and so you do miss out on a lot of stuff. But you just try to, if you can, like, get this card out of your hand and cast it for its flashback cost, then you're Gucci. You're solid.
Like using a Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yeah, Lion's Eye Diamond is a card, and both of these are currently legal in Legacy. Just a thought.
Yeah. Anything else to say about this card? I don't know. I don't like. It's this card is something that I think we're gonna have to see how it pans out. I don't think it's obviously gonna be slotted in addition to Twister. I mean, there's been a lot of like fake Twisters over the years. You know, like Time Spiral being a pretty solid one that is basically free when you're casting it on his front on for 6 mana. So and not a lot of decks in CDH are already playing Time Twister. So yeah, you need to
Time Spiral.
Sorry, lots of decks are playing Time Twister. But yeah, Time Spiral is like if a deck is maybe considering Time Spiral, maybe Echo of Eons will see play there, or unless there's some like weird graveyard deck that can abuse the flashback cost. But yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see how
Dream Halls. Dream Hall.
I mean, any deck that reasonably supports, you know, a bunch of intuition type.
Oh yeah,
piles.
dude, intuition piles at this.
Yeah, such as Mizzix.
Yeah.
The deck that keeps coming up that no one plays.
It's so much fun, and it's almost good.
Classic.
If only it didn't die to its own pyroclasms.
Okay, so our next card on the list
Is Force of Vigor, and it is technically 2 green for an instant, and it says destroy up to 2 target artifacts and/or enchantments. And it says if it's not your turn, you may exile a green card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. So it's a Force of Return to Dust.
Yeah, the nice thing about this is that you don't actually go neg on cards. You exile 2, you spend 2 cards to destroy 2 cards. The problem I see with this card is that you don't... Often when you want to be casting a card like Nature's Claim or Natural State, you're only trying to pick off 1 card, right? And sometimes, like if it's like late in the game, you don't need elves and they're just sitting in your hand or whatever reason, like pitching that to destroy someone's Rhystic Study or something like that. Like, sure, in addition to answering a threat, that's solid. But honestly, I think a lot of the time, you know, it being 4 CMC as well, lots of decks being on ad nauseum, unless you're in like mono green, I don't think you. I think this card isn't the auto include that some people think it is.
No, I don't think it's an auto include in like 4 color decks with a lot of options.
I mean, some people were talking about this in Gitrog. I don't think it's that great in Gitrog either. Huh.
Yeah, I guess because Green Black already has you have your Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of the time, like you think of this as killing 2 good cards, and generally what it's doing is it's killing one thing you want to kill and like a Mox or maybe a Soul Ring, which isn't bad. It's nice upside, but it's definitely a clunky card to use because you need either the green spell or 4 mana, or the green card or 4 mana for when you do need to kill like an Isochron Scepter, for example.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's too much else to say about Force of Vigor. Yeah.
Honestly, cards that cost 0 mana certainly are, you know, of interest.
Okay. So we've got up next Goblin Engineer, and this is for a 1 and a red. It's a creature Goblin Artificer. When Goblin Engineer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. You can also pay a red and tap and sacrifice an artifact to return target artifact with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it is a 1/2. So this, as far as I'm aware, we'll see play in basically only Godo, but this is actually kind of really great for Godo. It's a 2 CMC rock that can tap for net 2 mana the following turn. If you want, like you can send a Grim Monolith to the bin or a Mana Vault, and then you pay a red and you get out 3 colorless mana. Tap a rock for mana, sack it, then bring back your Grim Monolith or whatever. You can also use it to, if you want persistent mana, you can find a Soul Ring or a Crypt. It can also be used for generic utility. So if you want to protect your combo, you can find Defense Grid and get that into play the next turn for only a single red mana. So this card does a lot for seemingly such a such a niche effect. Yeah, I don't think it sees play anywhere else. I don't think it's going to see play anywhere else, though.
Well, the other sort of fringe meme use that people will find for this is that you can fit it in a pile with Aureox Salvagers and Entomb a Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yes, I guess you can. The classic combo of discarding all your interaction and leaving everything on the table wide open. Everyone's favorite.
People will do it.
People love Bomberman.
It's a layered combo deck. Come on.
It still does need a tap. Like if it was red and sack, like that would be a solid card.
Yeah. Also,
I think the fact that you can't cash
not
in
really
right away.
CDH, but this is technically a 1-card combo with Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker in the command zone. If you want, it's like. It requires sacrificing 3 artifacts and having 9 mana up. But that combo does exist. If you want to know what it is, you should go join the Mono Red Discord server and check out the Kiki Jiki channel. It's probably like,
this feels like
the last post there.
Like
yeah.
Anafenza pod lines.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you just need triple white and 7 mana. 16 life.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
someone read the next card before I get carried away.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, so next up we have Lesser Masticore, cast for 2, artifact creature Masticore, and written on it is, as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. It has 4, Lesser Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature, and finally it has Persist for a 2/2.
Yeah,
so I believe this goes directly into Varolz.
Yeah, this basically opens up a mana for Varolz piles, because in the past the standard Varolz Hulk pile was what is it? It's Melira, Disciple of the Vault, and Wing Rattle Scarecrow, and that's with Varolz in play as your sack outlet. So now by having this 2, and Wing Rattle Scarecrow was a 3 CMC artifact creature Scarecrow that has Persist as long as you control a black creature, I believe. But yeah, so now when you've got a Persist creature that has 1 less casting cost, which means you can fit in 1 more CMC into your Hulk pile. So that means if Varolz is not in play, you can get your Hulk trigger, and then you can use that 1 last CMC to find a sack outlet. So a self-contained Hulk pile, then also if Varolz is out, you can use that to find stuff like Sylvan Safekeeper to protect your combo. So yeah, all around really great in Varolz. And then also just as a generic card for Hulk piles that aren't in like Breakfast colors or Lightning Druid colors, like if you just want to jam Hulk into some random stuff, you can with if you're in green black X. It's not a bad pile.
It's a 1 trigger Hulk pile.
Yeah. Obviously, like the standard Hulk pile before this was in the standard Hulk pile in like the non-Shuffle Hulk, Breakfast Hulk, Lightning Druid lists was Mike Ball. So you'd find a sack outlet and like Body Snatcher. Then you'd reanimate the Hulk, sacrifice the Hulk, and you'd go to find Mikaeus and Walking Ballista. So that's a multi-Hulk pile, and it was obviously vulnerable to some stuff. So I guess the Lesser Masticore single Hulk pile is nice, but obviously harder to manually assemble. There's more pieces.
Yeah, I can only imagine the as an additional cost is also relevant. So maybe you want to like cast. I can only imagine that the additional cost of discarding a card could also be possibly relevant.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Like if you've got pieces stuck in your hand, or like Hulk stuck in your hand, especially in Varolz, it's really nice to be able to cast it, discard your Hulk, and then reanimate it, because oftentimes in Varolz you're stuck with Hulk in your hand and no way to get rid of it. So it honestly does a lot of work for that deck. Okay, so that's enough of Lesser Masticore. Up next, we've got
Mirrodin Besieged. It's an enchantment that casts for 2 and a blue, and it has, as Mirrodin Besieged enters the battlefield, choose Mirren or Phyrexian. And if you choose Mirren, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. And Phyrexian, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then, if there are 15 or more artifacts in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. So which mode do we think is relevant?
Well, we haven't technically gotten to the review of the card where that would make this obvious. But, spoiler alert, Mirren is the relevant mode. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, creating a 1/1 colorless mirror is going to be the most relevant mode on this card. This card is not as relevant as some other cards. So, well, I'll just spill the beans here. Urza is a card that we will be talking about probably last on our cards, just because it's just the juiciest card of this set, probably. But it basically turns artifacts that you control it makes them tap for blue. So the fact that it spits out colorless artifact tokens basically just spits out mana rocks when you cast an artifact. Now there's other cards that have similar effects. There's Sign Master Thopterist. Oh god, is it Trail of Evidence? The one that makes clues. Yeah. So this obviously isn't as good as those, but it is still something to consider.
Yeah, if you're looking for, redundancy in your Urza list, yeah, why not? And maybe sometimes you just have to, take people out the old-fashioned way and mill 15 artifacts.
I kind of want there to be some,
is that the old-fashioned way?
Druid deck.
It's definitely not the old-fashioned way.
Dude, some crazy Hermit Druid deck where you just get Mirrodin Besieged into play and, dude.
Okay, so you flash for...
No.
Can you get Rector and Hermit Druid?
No. Hermit Druid, it's obviously a Hermit Druid, Dread Return pile, and you, sack something with... Okay, here we go, okay? It's solved. I've already got it. So, upkeep, you, I guess you wouldn't do it on your upkeep, but you activate Hermit Druid, you mill your whole deck, you Dread Return an Academy Rector, you flashback a Memory's Journey to put Mirrodin Besiege in top of your library, then you sacrifice your Academy Rector with a Cabal Therapy. Boom. Easy.
And then you kill one opponent and die on your next turn because you have two more opponents?
Dude, but you did it.
I see.
Okay. I've got it. It's the creatureless Oath of Druids deck that tries to cast a Replenish.
How could we forget?
And then you get that one enchantment. It has the Pegasus on it, so you can skip your draw step and you're good.
Island Sanctuary.
Yes.
Island Sanctuary.
Or any one of the sanctuaries. Yeah. And then Starfield of Nyx to bring back...
Guys,
we got it.
We've crossed into ridiculous territory on Mirrodin Besieged. Yeah, mainly Urza tech, and we'll get into Urza later in this show. So next we've got a card that's interesting for one fringe CDH deck, and that is,
if we're being generous,
Fists of Flame, and that casts for 1 and a red. It's an instant. It reads, draw a card. Until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. So, hoorah for Zeta. It's a card that just cantrips and also pumps your team a lot if you've cantripped a lot, so it's just a nice finisher. Gives them trample, which is nice. Solid card for Zeta. But for everything else, wah. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't duplicate 20 times in other decks.
Yeah. And then also, you're in Zeta, so you're already. What are you doing? What are you doing?
For its context, though, it's nuts. Yeah. It's nuts in its context.
Okay, so that's enough for Fist of Flame. Next we got
Tribute Mage. Cast for 2 and a blue, creature, human, wizard. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact with converted mana cost 2, reveal that card and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library for a 2/2. This looks pretty familiar.
Is there 2-mana artifact that's really good with like some blue spells, perhaps.
Null Rod.
Yes, of course.
Dude, find your Null Rod, man. Find your Curse Totem. Hooray.
Finds the Null Rod.
No, but finding 3 CMC, tutor up your Isochron Scepter. Not too bad.
Sure, yeah.
Not too bad.
Not bad.
Yeah,
If you need a ramp a bit, grab your Grim Monolith.
Yeah.
Maybe even enchant a power artifact on it. You know, it's whatever.
It's got some stuff. I think one thing to consider, though, is that a lot of the Scepter decks, are they running Fabricate? If they're not already running Fabricate, they probably don't want to be on Tribute Mage. The only reason to maybe be on Tribute Mage is if you're dense in creature tutors. Or you're...
Or light on colors.
Yeah.
Like all the mono blue ones are running Fabricate.
Yeah.
And also like having blockers because Timna.
Yeah, it's definitely something that it's not going to see play in PST. But yeah, in monocolor decks, this is just another solid tutor that can find not only your win con, but a bunch of relevant stacks pieces, and also just ramp and all around solid cards. So, yay, another tutor.
Yeah, another very solid card.
Okay, so I think these next 2 cards are, and these are the last 2 for these cards before our next section, which is Commanders. So these are the 2 non-commander cards that I think are the juiciest cards of the set. So, Spleen, why don't you kick things off with perhaps my personal favorite card of the set?
So this next one, it's an oof, and I think it's going to be big. It's Collector Oof. It casts for 1 and a green and is a 2/2, and is a creature oof, and is also a bear because it's a 2/2. For 1 and a green. And when we say oof, we mean O-U-P-H-E.
Man, you're killing me here.
not
Just read the text on the card.
And it says, activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated.
Oh my god.
It's
hooray.
Null Rod on legs.
Dude.
Let's go.
So, first of all, Yisan, obviously. Obviously, Yisan. Second of all,
Tier 0 confirmed.
any deck that is like flooded in creature tutors that can that's green based and not in artifact mana, dude, this card can be just a slam dunk. Just an absolute slam dunk. So this is something like Gitrog lists have had Null Rod in and out depending on the meta and depending on how many artifact ramp pieces they're on, but dude, having such an accessible Null Rod, I think this card is just, it's going to be, I'm not going to say it's meta defining, but it's definitely going to make artifact based decks feel the heat, just because this card is going to be so accessible. And then people are I think a lot of decks are going to be upping the number of creature based removal in a response to this. That's my hot take there.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to impact decks to that,
I think
to that degree.
Just the fact that it doesn't
so
die
you
to
concur that it's a big oof?
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
That's a response. That counts.
I'll take it.
Yeah, so anything else to point out besides the fact this card is nuts? Any other hot takes? Do you guys have any predictions?
It's got great art. I think it's beautifully illustrated.
Okay, well, talking about card art is the standard set review indicator that it's time to move on to the next card.
Yeah.
And so last, but certainly not least, we've got Force of Negation. For 1 and 2 blue, it's an instant. If it is not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. And it has counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So, Force of Will 2.0, guys. Come on.
Force of Will meets negate meets dissipate.
No, it's definitely not Force of Will 2.0. You can't use it to protect your combos on your turn. You can't counter creature spells. It's not Force of Will.
But you save one life.
You save that precious life. No, but the massive thing about Force of Negation to consider is that you want to be the type of deck, like Shuffle Hulk runs Force of Will, Shuffle Hulk runs Pact of Negation, Shuffle Hulk runs Misdirection. These are all free counter spells, so you're like, oh, Force of Negation must be a slam dunk. Now, the thing about those spells is that they're all able to be used on your turn to protect your combo. Force of Negation, unless you're comboing on your opponent's turn, which Shuffle Hulk can do, it's mainly used to stop your opponents from doing busted things.
Which is definitely not the highlight point for free counter spells. Free counter spells are best when you're spending all your mana casting something else.
Now, this is what it is. So, for instance, if you want to tap out, it's really good to hold up as a means to hold up interaction while advancing your board state tap out style. So, if you're in Zur or if you're in Kess, or if you want to just tap out and make a really strong proactive play on your turn, some Zur players are like very reluctant to cast Zur without holding up counterspell, not even just to protect their Zur, but to stop opponents from winning, because they see them tap out for the Zur and they're like, okay, well now I've just got free reign to combo. Force of Negation is a card that lets you make those kinds of plays and feel safe during your opponent's turns, and that you can at least provide some amount of interaction.
Yeah, I think that's very well stated. I think one feature too of this card that might go unnoticed for now, but we'll certainly see later, is that it definitely exiles the spell, and that can be important. There are a lot of great non-creature spells that you don't want to see ever again, like Ad Nauseam,
Time Twister.
Yawgmoth's Will.
You can really screw some people
Time
by
Twister.
exiling a Time Twister.
Even Flash, Food Chain. Food Chain's a bit different, but like narrowing the Food Chain player to tutoring for its Fetch from Exile cards definitely is all right.
Yeah, getting their Food Chain exiled is hilarious.
Food Chain decks running Fetch from Exile cards? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so anything else to say about Force of Negation before we jump into our final 3 cards of the set review?
Please don't Force of Negation my Food Chain.
Fortunately,
no.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so let's
only if it's not my turn.
Let's jump into commanders then. And we're gonna go in. We're gonna save the best for last with this. So we'll start things off.
Okay. I see how it is.
Yeah, we're the most exciting for last. Okay, so let's.
Okay, that's a little more fair.
So let's kick things off with Yawgmoth Thran Physician. Yawgmoth Thran Physician is cast for 2 and 2 black. He's a legendary creature, human cleric, with protection from humans. He has pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature. Put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. And he has, for 2 black, discard a card, proliferate, and he is a 2/4. So Spleen, you're the one who's most jazzed about Yawgmoth. Why don't you kick things off?
Yeah, so, this card, it's very easy to just play it and draw an absolutely absurd number of cards. And obviously there are a whole bunch of ways to assemble the effect of Yawgmoth's Bargain, which is pay 1 life, draw a card. And obviously that effect is one that should win you the game if you have any reasonable amount of life total. Notably with Undying Creatures, Nest of Scarabs, and effects that make a token on either death or entering the battlefield. You can set up sort of loops. It is mono black, where you're strapped in a lot of areas, most notably in interaction. You don't have a ton. And the combo pieces that you're running are typically sort of higher mana cost than you might hope, and a little bit clunky. But it's definitely a cool and fun deck, and you can give it a try and you'll surprise people.
If anyone
and you can
has any competitive Hapatra decks, this just combos with Hapatra straight up, makes a Yawgmoth's Bargain. So
Also the other line of text that's relevant is not so much the second ability, the fact that it proliferates, but the fact that it discards cards like Razaketh. So you can play sort of a Reanimator graveyard style combo deck, and it does a lot of cool stuff. Unfortunately, you need the artifact ramp to make it fast enough, so you die to Null Rod. It's a creature that's sacrificing creatures, so you die to Curse Totem, and it's a graveyard combo deck, so Grafdigger's Cage hurts a lot too. But it is a lot of fun.
One thing I will say too is that the putting -1/-1 counters on your opponent's stuff is actually like no joke. You can stop a lot of things like that. Just clear important creatures, remove Labman, kill Notion Thieves, Mind Sensors, blah blah blah. Like the list goes on of things you can kill with -1/-1 counters, and it certainly doesn't hurt that you're drawing a card from that little exchange.
I think another big feature of this card too is that Tymna is a human. So
no, the protection from humans is a strict downside because it means you can't put counters on him to enable something like Nest of Scarabs.
Oh, actually, yeah. That's actually. Yeah. Oh man, imagine.
Okay, so that does it for Yawgmoth. Null. Actually, here. Let's swap the order on this one.
Let's switch up the order?
Yeah, Spleen,
I think this makes sense.
You get this one.
Okay, so we've got the first Sliver. And you may be thinking Slivers in CDH. What the heck? So it casts 4 white, blue, black, red, and green. It is a legendary creature. Sliver. Just like all those other legendary Slivers we've seen before.
That are now
and
$500 million.
Yes. It has Cascade. And it has Sliver spells you cast have Cascade, which is completely irrelevant.
There's exactly one relevant line of text, and that it has Cascade.
And it is a 7/7, which means you don't have a terrible backup plan. So, Food Chain, 5-color Food Chain specifically, is an archetype that has been around for a while. And about 6 weeks ago, we got a pretty serious upgrade from Tazri in the form of Niv Mizzet Reborn. He died so young. The first Sliver is the first Food Chain deck that means that you don't have to run functionally useless garbage outlet cards. With this, you can win using the Laboratory Maniac that's already in your deck. You can add Jace, and seeing as you're already running Demonic Consultation and Tainted Pact to enable your Food Chain by exiling those Cast from Exile creatures, you adding Jace means you're more likely to win when you exile half your deck, and you have another way to combo with those. You can set up Twister Loops if the right pieces survive. And with the inclusion of the one suboptimal card of Rift Sweeper, your deck is actually even more consistent than Food Chain Tazri or Food Chain Niv with their standard suite of 3 hard outlets, because you just have so many more ways to assemble a win that even if they take more cards, you still have a greater chance of having at least one of them survive. So basically we're taking the existing Food Chain decks, taking out the 3 outlet cards, putting in Jace, which is just a good card in the deck, Rift Sweeper, which isn't thrilling, but makes the deck really consistent.
Helps you get back your Food Chains that have been Force of Negation.
Yep. And literally anything. Whatever card you wanted to fit in the deck but didn't have space for, it's now in the deck.
Can everyone please can we have a moment of silence for Niv, who had the briefest moment as the best
2019 to 2019.
No. Everyone press F in chat, please, for Niv Mizzet.
I'm worried that will mess up my recording, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Spleen just about covered it for the first Sliver. It's just a solid upgrade for Food Chain decks.
One other thing, You can enable some really funny stuff, particularly if you have a lot of mana in the late game. It takes a turn off using your top deck tutors effectively.
Oh, true.
I won a game by putting a Tainted Pact on top and casting the Sliver.
That's clever.
It's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, cast E-Tutor, cast the first Sliver, then bing, bam, boom, you're in it.
You're off to the races.
Pretty much.
Okay, so let's get on to... The first Sliver is exciting, but it's really just an upgrade to an already high-tiered CEDH deck. Let's give some time to discuss the newcomer to CEDH. He's you're no tell us about him.
Sure. So this is the one of the first mono blue commanders that can effectively block Timna. No, I'm just kidding. So this is Urza, Lord High Artificer. He casts for 2 blue, legendary creature, human artificer, with 3 very relevant sections of text. First off, when Urza, Lord High Artificer, enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. This is known as creating a construct. Second, tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue. This is known as your artifacts are now Moxes.
Dude, all the Mox Sapphires, man. Hell yeah.
all the Mox Sapphires, yeah. And then last but not least, 5, shuffle your library, then exile the top card until end of turn. You may play that card without paying its mana cost. And as I said, for very well standard 1/4. Wow.
Okay. Every line of text in this card is relevant. Every line.
Certainly, yeah.
Like, the people dismiss the construct. This card is... So blue decks notoriously have had a problem with just low creature count because there aren't enough good creatures to run, and then, people might hit him to death. Like, that's an easy way to... Or, like, kill Teferi. Like, yeah. Dude, you can be on the offensive when you're playing Urza with this construct. This thing can get massive because your deck is just full of artifacts to take advantage of his ability to just make mana from them.
Yeah, to stall the game.
So this construct comes down as like a 6/6, 7/7 sometimes. And also he immediately taps for mana. So for some reason that's okay.
I just want to quickly quote a friend of mine, a fan of the podcast. He said, "This has got to be the upper limit of how strong a card can be," and I think like in the context of a single card, like it'd be hard to beat this. There's plenty of good. There's plenty of things that you can just slot into this deck. Everything that you think like wouldn't advance your board state does. Like Grafdigger's Cage is now just it costs no mana.
One notable thing too about Urza is that typically blue decks will run things like Curse Totem, and they get hosed by Null Rod. Urza is kind of in the opposite boat here because he actually taps your artifacts, make mana through Null Rod. Because his ability, it's the ability on him to make the mana, and it's with Curse Totem in play, that shuts off his ability. So you're not really jazzed to see either of those effects. Like you can play through a Null Rod, but you're not jazzed about it because you do run artifacts with abilities. But yeah, Curse Totem is now something that you probably don't want to be running in this deck. Now we haven't even delved into a lot of like the busted Urza synergies that are out there, because some artifacts have abilities that get turned off when they're tapped. So those are cards like Trinisphere, Winter Orb, Static Orb. Is there any that I'm missing here?
Those are the major three.
Yeah, those are the big ones. So that means
and you're really not trying to pollute your deck with those effects because there's no reason like past those
Howling
three.
Mind's also pretty good.
Howling Mind is definitely great. I think like that's maybe a meta call because I find that you want to cast Howling Mine and then you realize that you don't have Urza in play and you can't.
Yeah.
It's not really particularly advantageous.
Everyone
Fair
drawing
enough.
cards. Yeah. Yikes. Especially because everyone gets to draw
Where
cards
the other
before
ones
you.
are
Yeah.
the other ones are certainly avenues to casting Urza quicker.
Yeah, I've been
possible scenarios.
Null has been testing with Urza just proxied up, and I'll tell you this much for free: having just an asymmetrical Winter Orb or Static Orb feels really, really, really bad.
Yeah, a summary of a turn order would pretty much go land pass, land pass, land pass, tap Winter Orb, untap, Mind's Desire for 1, draw a bunch of cards, attack with my Construct, pass.
Yeah, and then everyone else untaps
that's-
only a single land. Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Feels
play a dork, pass.
feels bad,
Seems good.
man. But yeah, like, and that's just scratching the surface. Like, those are just some obvious synergies. Like, yeah, like Trinisphere, you can have that up only for when you want to. Like, if you're trying to combo off, you can tap the Trinisphere for mana and then turn it off. Or you can make it difficult so your opponents try to cast a flash or do some stuff, so they have to pay the tax on the Trinisphere. Then all of a sudden, you just tap the Trinisphere to allow other opponents to interact. Stuff like that. But then Urza just turns a bunch of it just amps up your evaluation on a bunch of cards, right? So things like top obviously is just kind of a staple in mono blue, but it's just having it tap for mana just so much better as well, right? You can look at the top 3 of your cards for basically free. This deck just gets flooded with mana, and it takes advantage
And
of it really
has something to do with
Yeah.
it, right? Urza has that his ability, stapled onto him.
Yeah, one thing we should mention too about this ability is that he's just an infinite mana outlet.
Yeah, and that kind of brings that's a great point, and it kind of brings me to something I specifically want to talk about, which is comparing him to I think what most people consider to be the current mono blue commander to beat, and that's Teferi.
And you're a long time Teferi player.
Yeah, I've been playing Teferi for a while, and at the same time I haven't been playing Teferi recently because of his weaknesses. So let's talk about that. So Urza creates 2 CDH level blockers, right? They can.
And he doesn't.
Urza,
You can't
Urza
remove
and
him
the
with
construct.
beats.
You cannot. Teferi dies to combat damage. I would be scared to cast a Teferi if there was a 2/2 in play.
Oh god, and God,
Yeah.
Well,
Lord, do
it's
we
not
know
like we
there's
see
a
very
lot
many
of
2/2s.
yeah, there's a lot of 2/2s in the command zone in Tymna's. So yeah,
I think you can argue that because of that, he's almost like harder to remove. Like you can play him as a value engine because he doesn't die to combat damage. Teferi very deceptively looks like a value engine, but in reality is just a combo outlet.
Yeah.
Teferi is certainly a combo outlet, but is really only a combo outlet to one combo. Urza is, there's really, you could pack tons of redundancy into your combos because he's a pure infinite mana outlet.
yeah. So there's
And as much as he is a hard outlet, he's a soft outlet, right?
Yeah, there's well, so one thing is you can almost get so I know PST decks, they run the combo with Paradox Engine top and Thrasios in play, where you can activate top, draw a card, pay the mana for Thrasios, replay top, and if you're netting enough mana, you'll just get there. So now Urza, first of all, Paradox Engine now taps for mana because that's somehow allowed. Like what? And
your construct taps for mana.
yeah, you pay your mana to activate your Urza ability, and if you roll a card you can cast, if you shuffle into one of the cards you can cast, bam, that card's basically free, right? So you can just get a ton of value out of this Paradox Engine, and that's without even having any infinite combos. Because if you ever get infinite mana, like we said, Urza will just win the game. So you get infinite manas and infinite combos in Paradox Engine. You get infinite mana, infinite combos in Isochron, Scepter Dramatic Reversal, Power Artifacts of Basalt/Grim Monolith. There's so many different ways to go about it that like Null was saying, he is just so flexible and resilient in his win cons.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, I never thought they'd actually make an Urza card, just because no matter what they did, it would be disappointing. Like, he's so built up in the story. This is not disappointing. Like, I never thought I'd see a card this strong printed, particularly in a modern legal set.
Yeah, that's. I think that everyone like just got hit hard with this. Like I remember where I was when this card was spoiled. I was at work, being productive, and then I got a message on
productive anymore.
I got a notification, yeah, and then that's it was hard to stay concentrated on
anything
but
brewing this deck in your mind. Yeah.
Exactly, dude. I had the whole 99 set up already. I just had to write it down. He is strong, but there are two notable weaknesses. One of which has already been mentioned, but I kind of want to go a bit further on, and is that he's affected by Curse Totem. I think like that really is a hard. It's not a hard stop, but you can't like Mono Blue has a hard time dealing with Curse Totem.
Yeah.
Especially because bouncing is not going to be good enough. So if you really want to get rid of a Curse Totem, you're bouncing it and countering it, and that doesn't even really do it, because Curse Totem compared to Null Rod is played way more frequently. Like, you're going to see way more Curse Totems than you are Null Rods.
I mean, with the new oof, like, that might change. You might see more Null Rods than Curse Totems in the upcoming meta, and that's fine for Urza, right? Obviously, the one thing you do suffer from is
unless Urza really makes unless Urza really shakes it up, which I don't think he will, but I think you're definitely going to see a lot of Urza, coming out the gate, but I don't necessarily think he's going to really shake things up.
Yeah, just casually like kicking Teferi out of the way and seizing the throne for himself, but not making too big of a fuss about it.
And then second weakness, which is kind of not really a weakness, it's more of like a comparison, and that's that he can't really win with High Tide, and Blue is great at tutoring High Tide. Teferi and High Tide go particularly well together. You do need to assemble like a decent crew of artifacts. Yeah.
One thing
he kind of feels like a soft High Tide, honestly.
Yeah, you just make so much mana. One thing too with Urza versus Teferi comparison that I just kind of wanted to elaborate on, like, how often with Teferi do you find you're able to defend? Like, how much mana do you have open after you cast you cast and activate your Chain Veil? Like, do you often find you're able to protect it a lot of the time, or because Urza makes so much mana, and he doesn't need to spend. You don't need to spend 8 mana to get your combo piece into play often, right?
No. Urza plays like Urza doesn't pretend to be a control deck. It's definitely a mid-range deck. So you're playing Urza and then you're comboing. I think with Teferi it's like you sometimes you try to play control, but you really are at the deepest kind of just a mid-range deck. This way, I think Urza it's certainly a mid-range deck. You're just playing Urza. You're dropping your stacks pieces. You're setting up your combo. You're disrupting people. So yeah, if you want to follow the developments of this deck, there's currently a tapped-out collaboration between Sickrobot, Lurker, Shaper, and Siggy, all huge names in the community. This is their Urza Paradox Scepter deck. You can find it by searching Urza on the subreddit. It goes by the acronym UPS. And yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely the most solid list I've seen around. I think it has a careful balance between stacks and control and combo. I don't really know what's going on with Legacy's Allure, but hey,
Apparently
we all make
it's good.
mistakes.
I'm not sold, but I guess I'll take their word for it.
Also, I
Yeah.
do just want to throw out a quick word for Sickrobot, who was super excited to talk about this card, and
Yeah,
unfortunately
he really was.
couldn't be here.
Yeah, we in the last episode at the very end we were joking a bit, like saying, "Oh, we predict that there will be lots of rule of law effects," and that was in reference to the first sliver, and lots of null rod effects, and that was in reference to the oof and maybe a bit of Urza as well. But yeah, so we'd forbidden Sickrobot and anyone from talking about the spoilers until we did this episode, so that it's an extra kind of a sad moment for Sick, in the sense that he couldn't talk about the deck that he really wanted to on this episode. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this episode. If you guys would like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us on Twitter at IntoTheNorthPod, via our email intothenorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, the invite link for which can be found in the description for this episode. An extra special thanks to all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work towards improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a patron, we are at patreon.com/IntoTheNorthPodcast. Thank you as always to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, and to Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo. Next episode will be out in a month. Until then, see ya.
See ya.
Have a good one.